Hello, you filthy animals. Invincible Season 4 is finally upon us, so now we've got to review Episode 1. I gotta be honest, I think Mark is overcompensating with his obsession with saving every single life, because in the Invincible War he abandoned, the people when they needed him the most. I was completely on Team Cecil last season because you gotta have contingencies against heroes, so it's no surprise to me that the champs of the globe went crawling back to him. He ended up being completely right about Sinclair and Darkwing. They both really helped. Let me tell you, if you think Eve's dad is bad in the show, you haven't met comic book Adam Wilkins. Look at this panel. Jeez. The main dilemma of this season is, was Mark right to kill this one guy, Russ Livingston? And ultimately, it's understandable why he did it, because you couldn't know. Last season, he hesitated and Angstrom Levy was able to get away. But at the same time, it is an objective fact that had he waited just a second more, Bulletproof would have gotten there. Ultimately, I just wish that he'd bothered to just turn his neck to see if Bulletproof was close, but it doesn't matter. Hey, I know I said earlier that I was on Cecil's side, but sparing Conquest was the dumbest thing he could have done. He didn't even bother putting that ear thing that he put in Mark's head, the earpiece that emits sonic waves or whatnot, or at least cut off his head and leave just the head to communicate. They have the technology in the Invincible universe to do such a thing. Bro, better pray Mark never finds out, which he will. I'm honestly excited to see how that interaction goes. All in all, I give the episode 8 out of 10. Excellent introduction to the season. Can't wait to see where it all goes. Hello, you filthy animals, and I thought we'd talk about Invincible Season 4 Episode 2. Now, I gotta be honest, everyone was glazing this episode like it was something else, and I thought it was just alright. Maybe it's because I've already read the story, so none of these lore dumps were new to me. But I did really like seeing Nolan for the first time as a kid. That was pretty shocking. It's so funny how his mom basically wanted to do the same thing he did. What's 17 more years? I've only ever seen that one Star Trek movie where Benedict Cumberbatch was the villain, so some of these Easter eggs flew over my head, but it was alright. Real question. What do you think, how powerful do you think these Ragnars are? Because you gotta think that they're taking down Viltrum. Could a Ragnar beat King Kong, for example, or Godzilla? At first you may say that's a stupid question, but think about how powerful Viltrumites are, and think about a Ragnar can't kill a Viltrumite pretty easily. It's kind of like a lion to a human, so I don't know, man. Do you think a Ragnar could destroy a planet? All in all, I'm pretty glad that they're taking their time with Nolan's redemption, even though he's completely redeemed himself in the audience's eyes, I believe. I don't think there's a single person who still views Nolan as a bad guy, but they're still taking their time to show that brainwashing takes time to get erased, and that's important because, well, let's just say other Viltrumites also get redeemed eventually, and some of them, their redemptions were a bit lackluster, so I hope they also take their time when we get that point. All in all, I give the episode 8 out of 10. Hello, you filthy animals, and let's talk about Invincible Season 4 Episode 3. I really need to read the God in the Globes comics at some point, because I'm really wondering where this whole Order storyline is going. They're always talking about making money, but when are they actually going to start taking over? We're all the way in Season 4. I don't hate the plotline like everyone else seems to, but I'm also starting to wonder, The Flaxons are back, and honestly, you gotta commend these guys, because they just don't know when to give up, do they? Remember what Nolan did in their dimension, and they're still back. Imagine if he was still here. I don't think I like Brit for the same reason I'm not a fan of characters like Severus Snape, because they just remind me of people in real life, stubborn people who don't want to listen to you even when you're right. Remember in episode 1 when Robot was clearly right about people being in the sewer and Brit was just there? But it was nice to see that when push comes to shove, he can disobey orders to do the right thing. Rex and Monster Girl are trapped in the Flaxon dimension, and oh boy, you know what's coming. I am so excited. But before we end it, we gotta talk about this dragon, because I'm gonna be honest, the more you think about it, this dragon might just be the most powerful character in all of Invincible. It's not even a joke. Yes, it has the obvious weakness of the human body, but the dragon by itself, not counting it's immortal. What can you do? If we assume that it doesn't get tired, it could probably take on all the Viltrumites, or probably not actually, because they're overpowered, but it can still keep going and going, and it's immortal. See, these are the kind of storylines that I want us to find out about instead of constantly just forming the order, reforming the order. Someone's in charge, someone else is in charge. Tell us Mr. Liu's origin story. I give this episode a 7 out of 10. See you all next week. Hello you filthy animals, and let's talk about Invincible Season 4 Episode 4. This fight between Clan Darkblood and Volcanica was amazing. I love this fight. Look at the choreography. This fight was pretty cool if you ask me. I don't fully get why Oliver wasn't summoned and only Mark was, since they both have Omniman's blood, but whatever, ultimately it doesn't matter. But although maybe it does, maybe Oliver would have enhanced this episode, because after Mark shows up here, the episode kind of starts to drag with all the lore dumps, about the different ages, from the 1st to 7th age, and how Satan lost his infernal throne and whatnot. It was kind of a bit dull. And another thing that I gotta be honest is kind of dragging out the season is how many times does Mark need to get talked to by Art or by Cecil or whoever is talking to him, or even Eve or his mom, about killing? Because he had this exact same arc last season when he thought he'd killed Angstrom Levy. Of course I get the conflict of killing someone, it's not something small, but at the same time, geez. And the last thing that disappointed me was Satan's full design, because I liked his small design, and that scene where he's starting to grow after he gets his crown was kind of cool, and then you see his full design and are you serious? What a joke. William's new voice actor made me pause the episode and actually Google, because I was wondering, am I out of my mind? Is that really the same person? But other than that, I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was a fun time, and I'm really wondering where all this lore is leading up, what's all leading up to, because I obviously know when Volcanica returns, but what's Darkblood gonna do? What's he investigating, The Viltrumite War is here at last. Let's go. Cancerous review of Invincible Season 4 Episode 5. I didn't think it was possible to be so hyped for an apology, but wow, the build-up was crazy. And I think they did a good job. I say W Oliver for standing on business, not letting them just leave him out of the Viltrumite War. And I also kind of came out of nowhere, but surprised me. Oliver and Tech Jacket, wow. Speaking of Tech Jacket, well, looks like the rumors were true, they gender bent her. In the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. The only thing that's lost is the beard joke, which was a funny joke. It's unfortunate, but other than that, everything else can remain the same. Is it just me, or were Alan the Alien and Conquest weaker in this episode than they were last time we saw them? Alan was able to take on Anissa just like that, and you can argue that Anissa is just a really weak Viltrumite relative to the ones we saw in this episode, but I don't know, I already made a video debunking that on my YouTube channel. And Conquest was put in the hands on Mark just last season. Did Mark really get that much stronger between last season and this season? Was there really that much time? I don't know. Either way, the Viltrumite War has begun. I give this episode a 10 out of 10. Hello you filthy animals, let's talk about Invincible Season 4 Episode 6. A lot of people were complaining last episode that under all circumstances they don't want Debbie to ever forgive Nolan, but I completely disagree, and this episode is all the proof I need. When Robert Kirkman first wrote the Invincible story, he sought to write a story on forgiveness, that despite what you've done you can't find redemption. So so many characters have redemption, from Darkwing 2 to Sinclair to Nolan with both of his sons. This episode's whole dynamic with Nolan and Oliver is a perfect example of what I consider to be the beating heart of Invincible. I love the Alan and Tech Jacket dynamic. It was great in the comics with the male one, it's great in the show with the female one. And they transferred the beard joke to Mark and Oliver, so it's a win-win. I'm very curious to see what the public reception is gonna be of screening most of the Viltrumite War. I mean, it was obviously gonna happen. There are only 3 episodes left, 2 now, but Invincible fans find a way to complain about everything, so I'm really curious to see where this one goes. The battle on Telescria was fantastic. I stand by what I said last week, that I feel like Alan the Alien's been nerfed, and so have the other Viltrumites in my opinion, but I think I figured out why. Obviously there's a limit to what the animators can do, and so since we all know Thrag is coming and he needs to be the most powerful Viltrumite, they have lowered everyone else so that they can show a proper power gap between Thrag and everyone else. Still, the battle was fantastic, and Invincible writers, you got me. That Conquest fake out had me on the edge of my seat. I give this episode a 10 out of 10. Hello you filthy animals, and let's talk about Invincible Season 4 Episode 7. I really like Oliver and Tech Jacket, and spoilers for the comics, but after the first Viltrumite War, what we're witnessing right now, Tech Jacket disappears from the Invincible comics and never returns, and and I hope that's something they change. I want to see more of Tech Jacket. I like those two characters. Another thing I really like that we're getting more of compared to the comics is Viltrumite lore. We had already seen the Purge in season 1. I didn't think we were going to get it again, but we did, and it was amazing. It's always fun to see extra things. Well, I think we can all agree that Thrag beat his fraud allegations. He was certainly putting in a lot of work this episode. I don't think there's any doubt after this episode on who the strongest character in this verse is. But you know who the real fraud is? Someone who at first I didn't think was a fraud. I just thought he didn't have a lot of screen time. But now that we've seen it all, General Krieg. My theory is that he's got to be a great tactical leader. That's why he got his position, because it certainly ain't strength. We have to look at everything he's done, both comics and TV show, and he doesn't have anything special. Freaking Anissa was putting in more work than him. It's a fact. Just watch the episode. She was fighting Nolan, she was fighting Thaddeus, she was fighting overpowered Space Racer. And speaking of Space Racer, did I miss something? I felt like his gun penetrated the whole planet by itself. The bullet went in and came out the other side. So I don't even know what the three Viltrumites were doing. I know it's annoying to keep comparing the comics, but in the comics it didn't go through the whole way. It just made a crater, and then the Viltrumites are the ones who went through the whole way. But here the gun did all the work, so like why'd they even bother? But minor plot holes aside, this episode was fantastic. It's the best we've seen yet over the entire show, I think. Not only was it just non-stop action, it was tense from the beginning to the end. Even knowing what was gonna happen, I still felt tense, so I can only imagine what it was like for first time watchers. This is the best Invincible has to offer. But before I end it, I have to say, Mark beating Thula in season 2 never made sense to me in season 2 itself, and now all the way in season 4 it makes even less sense. She's out here fighting freaking Battle Beast. Yes, she got one hit once, he landed a good blow on her, but she was definitely putting a lot of work. She's the one who landed the first hit on Thaddeus, so I don't know what happened in season 2, honestly. I give this episode a 10 out of 10. I can't wait for the finale next week. Hello you filthy animals, and let's talk about the season 4 season finale, episode 8 of Invincible. What a tense episode. Definitely different from all the other season finales. I don't know if a lot of people complain about that, but the tension was real. By the time we got to the Cecil fake out, I'd already gotten tired and it was getting a bit predictable, but the first few, the one with Debbie and the one with Eve, actually got to me. And speaking of Debbie, I told you, didn't I? Invincible is a story about forgiveness. I wasn't sure how they'd do it, but I knew eventually they'd have to set up her forgiving Nolan. It's just how the story works. Like, sit there and think about it from the perspective of someone who's just watched season 1 and telling them that Mark's gonna eventually forgive his dad after, the way he beat him up at the end of the season. It sounds crazy, but that's the story that we're telling, So long, Paul. It was nice knowing you. Speaking of Paul, I've been seeing a lot of Paul memes going about. Is it just me, or do some of these Invincible memes feel forced? Like, there's some which are genuinely funny, like the sea salt one, I need you sea salt, or where's the next season, William, and things like that. But then there's some which just feels forced. I don't know. You tell me. I guess it's all subjective. That Alan the alien meeting, when as he was discussing with the other leaders of the planets where the Viltrumites are, kind of reminds me of meetings I've been in, which it's so annoying. Everyone's just yelling, they're not helping. So if there's one thing Invincible excels at, it's making these extraordinary things feel so real and down to earth. And going back to Cecil, brother, how's he talking all this shit when he's the one who unleashed conquest on the world? He's so lucky that Mark's mind was elsewhere, because wow. But yeah, the season's over. It's such a shame. Until next year, Thrag showed up, he gave his ultimatum. Of course, Max was gonna accept. There's literally nothing he could do. We've seen what one Viltrumite can do with conquest, and we've seen what multiple Viltrumite level beings would do to their planet. So 37 is way more than the number of Invincibles that were on Earth in the Invincible War, and each of them is more powerful than the Invincibles, except for maybe a few. So yeah, there's literally nothing that could be done there. I'm gonna miss this show. I know it's all subjective, but it's just so much better than everything else that's out. It's crazy. I give this episode an 8 out of 10, and I give the whole season a 9 out of 10. But before I leave, let me ask you this. Do you think it's the right thing to do to unleash the Scourge virus if the Viltrumites were still attacking? Like, right, we know they're not attacking, so it is the wrong thing. But let's say they were. Would you be willing to sacrifice the human race to save the galaxy? Or let's say it was the humans who were the Viltrumites who are taking over. Would you be willing to pull a Thaddeus and eradicate your whole people to save everyone else, Tell me in the comments below.